that allows for persons to who are vision impaired how t- I'm sorry, I'm getting
Sorry.
feedback. Um, so as we continue forward, Business Enterprises Program was meant for those who are legally blind to um, gain training on how to become vendors for their respective state, in-state, and federally ran facilities. I had to do everything on my own, from learning how to use a knife skillfully to filling out a profit and loss statement, and just an array of other things, getting to work on my own. There was no handout in that. But because of the economic meltdown in 2008, I needed to sell my business and move on to something different. One of the things that I had decided to do since the Business Enterprise Program was such a big portion of independence was, good morning to you, was the fact that I could teach independent living skills to those who have been newly blind, either through diabetes or a traumatic injury, or for the younger students who were blind from birth, help them gain more independence through showing them how to cook and clean safely, use access technology in the real world, uh, to read bills, and to pick out colors. So that was what I did. But I decided that, again, I wanted to move forward in my advocacy. I went to San Francisco and I met a lot of corporations and eye institutes that wanted to know how I saw things without seeing, in order to help in the greater future. It was a step beyond self-driving cars, a step beyond what is now LiDAR and spatial audio. Um, I did that for a couple of years, and then with feedback from my prior students as an ILS instructor, I decided to come back to college here at FCC. And in that venture, I've become the DSPNS Student Leadership Club president. I've advocated for students and instructors, and earned 3 first place blue ribbons at the Fresno Fair. So with all of that being said, Access starting with me, and why we are here, is the main purpose of continuing this cadence of access. Before online instruction, in my humble opinion, there were a lot of ups and a lot of downs. And since the start, I would say, of online learning, Access has just risen to a level that is enormous. And so in the spirit of the past and now, as a student, I thought I would like to keep this going with things talked over with Mrs. Crockett and Mrs. Fisher and Mr. Tackett, who's here with us today. We all came to the consensus that, yes, even though things going back to normal is the most positive thing we could ask for, continuing this procession of accessibility is in everyone's best interest. All students, whether with an alternative need or not. Not all disabilities are documented because of people's choices, and so it's my firm belief that we should be able to create a universal partnership, starting from a structurized base and then building on that. So now that these tools are here right in front of us, let's continue to hold on to them and move them forward so that we can continue on this path. And I brought something with me to show the differences in Access then to now. Access then was very hard to come by. It was very expensive. And it was expensive because it was only built for a certain community of people. The community I'm a part of is the blind community. And in this community, we have something in what we lovingly call our blind bag. And so I will show you what our blind bag is. And if you so happen to have a pen and paper with you, I'd like us to go through. I'm sorry. The questions that are in the chat are being read back to me, and I'm just totally in tune to hearing what everyone has to say. So if I pause, it's because I'm getting the audio from that question, and it's not bothersome. It's good information. Please continue the chat in the box. But I'm going to go through this blind bag, which in the past was filled, and I apologize for covering my face, with all types of access technology, tons of access technology. And so if you have a pen and paper at the ready, let's go through how access has changed within the span of cost and size. Size causes sometimes stigma, well, a lot of times a stigma for students, especially when they have to unpack a heavy load at their desk. A laptop, shown here, costs about $1,000 in my high school days, anywhere from $500 to $1,000. So let's start with $1,000 with a basic laptop. A laptop that was built for everyone to use, but for me did not have access for someone who is blind. In order to gain this access, I needed programs, lots of programs to be in this quote unquote laptop. Here are two of these programs. One of them is JAWS, which is a screen reader that needed to go into the computer. And the other one is OpenBook, which is scanning software that allowed for text to speech. It allowed for me to take a picture of a document, and then that picture then be translated through the software into the headphones. $900, $900. So far we have 1,000 and two 900s. Another thing I needed was a camera in order to take those pictures. So imagine we have a laptop at the desk with the software in it, and then we have a camera. This is more of a newer camera, but nonetheless, it is still large. You guys get my unpacking, my YouTube unpacking. The cord would get plugged into the computer. Then I would set up this contraption at a desk. Here at top is the camera. At the bottom, the base. The base would sit on the table. The document would flank out. The camera would take the picture. The camera would only work in unison with the software in the laptop. I would use a keyboard shortcut, take the picture here to the cord, to the computer with recognition, probably take about 2 to 5 minutes to get decent feedback. Not the best. If it didn't work, I had to do it again. By that time, 15, 20, 30 minutes could have went by. Instruction is beyond me. I also needed a way to take notes, and I can honestly say, right, but wait, there's more. I needed a way to take notes. This is a newer, smaller device, but it works. This is called the Victor Stream. And this Victor Stream, using this interface here, oh, the camera's $300. Thank you so much. $300 for the camera. So to review, laptop 1,000, software 9 and 9, camera 300. This device, believe it or not, is more than the camera. You might ask, why is it more than the camera? It's just a small, it's way smaller than the camera. Why is this more? Because there's speech input in this device. Using the interface allows for this to be used. $400 easily. That's it. That's all for the blind bag. Yeah, that's all. But, well, one thing I did need, because this stuff talks, and I didn't want the stigma in the classroom, I needed headphones. Gotta have headphones. That's definitely a part of the blind bag. So what did we come up with? You can put it in the chat box if you like. I assumed maybe around $3,099 or $3,300. Somewhere in that vicinity was how much it would cost to pack up this blind bag. Again, limiting the opportunity for a binder, limiting the opportunity to carry other things in there that was necessary only for school. You ain't heavy, you're my blind bag. Yeah, I mean, aside from my shoulders being sore at the end of the day, aside from sometimes my back hurting because I needed to carry this bag from class to class to class, unpack, repack. I said it to one of the presenters here today. It was like a good workout for positive access. This, to me, was a complete package at the time. But then came the innovation that I'm speaking of that is here now front and center. The innovation is in the palm of my hand, and it's in the palm of your hand as well. Sitting on your desk, if you have an iPhone or an Android device, is a wealth of technology. And we'll get into that later. But in the spirit of all of this, I want to bring universal design to the forefront. See, we started before online instruction with accessibility, and it was good. But again, with online learning, Access has started the foundation for universal design. And I feel that it started a foundation here at Fresno City College for this design. To explain a little bit more on how universal design is helpful in this education setting and creating a path from here on out toward the future and keeping access relevant for when we have face-to-face classes. For me as a student, that's important. I don't want to lose that cadence. It will help me become a more efficient, productive student. So I'd like to bring Mr. Patrick Tackett from the DSPNS office to tell you a little bit more about universal design and how it can be helpful. Mr. Tackett?
All right, thanks, Gerald. Hello, everybody. I'm Patrick Tackett. Many of you, some of you I haven't met yet. I'm the Learning Disability Specialist for DSPS. I'm also a counselor. And in my role as Learning Disability Specialist, I do assessment testing in order to determine eligibility for services for the DSPS program. But as part of that assessment testing, I'm able to get a lot of really great in-depth information about students as learners. And then we really work to try and leverage that information into developing learning strategies and approaches, and also looking at accommodations and resources that would be useful and would leverage the strengths that the student has to assist in maybe some of those areas that are more challenging. I'm also the Cape Head Learning Disability Representative on the council. I'm the Region C representative. That's a statewide council dealing with learning disability and accommodations and technology, and also developing learning strategies. My background kind of is in instruction, the assessment, also assistive technology, and again, developing those learning strategies. I've in the past was with the Rehabilitation Counseling Program and was the director of the Rehabilitation Counseling Evaluation Center. And as far as degrees, my bachelor's and MFA in English, and then my master's in rehabilitation counseling. So my area of interest has always been academia and education, and how to kind of combine access and learning and technology. So, and really what I think I'm here today is to help demonstrate some of the programs that we'll look at, but also, you know, as Gennaro said, I think he said very well, kind of the conversations that we were having in this last almost year now, when we went to distance education, and a lot of the challenges that we were faced with and that we met, a lot of those conversations tend to look at those challenges and how we've overcome those challenges, or how we've you know, worked to meet those challenges. But having the conversation with Gennaro helped me sort of reframe some of those things also as some of the real gains that we've had, and some of the things as far as access, and now how the distance education, the way content is delivered, meshes really well with a lot of the technology that many students use for access, that you may have to use for as part of accommodations. And his sort of explaining that, you know, I really hope that we don't lose some of those things when we do go back to face, because that way we will have sort of all of the best of those worlds, being able to, again, leverage the technology to work with the content that is delivered in this accessible way. So it was a sort of a really positive and exciting way to look at some of the things that have definitely been challenging. And then sort of thinking of that quote, it's a Bruce Lee quote, that sort of in the middle of chaos lies opportunity. And thinking, again, speaking with Karen and hearing about her experience being exposed to some of this technology for the first time, and then really seeing the utility that it can be used beyond just accommodation, and it can be used for access for everyone, but also that it can be used to leverage learning strategies in the classroom. We can use a lot of these things as instructors. We can think of ways that students who may not necessarily be receiving services through DSPS, but the technology allows that sort of universal design approach of multiple modes and means of engagement and expression. It allows for a greater tolerance for error if we have other ways to, again, engage that material, to process that material, and really that key term of adaptability. You know, that we look at design on the front end, designing access, but also being aware of some of the tools that are available allows us to be even more adaptable. So I thought that this might be an opportunity that what we may see when we return to the face-to-face setting is that some students may be using some of this technology even more so than before. And I know a lot of instructors have seen some of the access technology that students use as accommodations, but some may not be too familiar with it. And this might be a good opportunity for us to present and demonstrate some of those, and hopefully open up conversations about how can we use these things in different ways, and what's available, and how can students possibly use these to learn in different ways, to approach the material in different ways. So that's sort of the approach when we're looking at things from the universal design approach, and hopefully offer some exciting new glimpses into some things that maybe you're not familiar with. So I'll send it back to Jerome.
Thank you, Mr. Tackett. And so here we are now. We've went from a place of access technology to beginning a foundation rooted in universal design. How can we help everyone all at once? And so, referring to the blind bag before, $3,300 is a lot of money, but it's in the palm of my hand. It's here today. It's right now in one small device. not just an iPhone or an Android device, but tablets as well, completely built in. And so what we're going to do next is we're going to prepare to wow you. As the saying goes, prepare to be amazed. We are going to present to you some access tools available via different formats and different platforms so that we can mesh this all together, so that we can continue to move forward. And one of those ways is to create some audible access tools. Some audible access tools are screen readers. JAWS is a screen reader. It's the program that you saw earlier. And although it's great, it's a little pricey. VoiceOver is another screen reader that is inputted into everybody's device that has an iPhone or an Apple device. Imagine me being in school and us sharing the same phone and saying, yeah, that screen reader is right in there already built in for you. It's the same with TalkBack in Android, already inputted into this phone. No need for any anything special, right? It's already there. Narrator is already built into everybody's PC. If you have a PC at school, it's in there. It's ready to go, available for everybody. NVDA is a free screen reader for those students who can afford the pricing of an iPhone or a PC computer that runs along with Microsoft in many different ways. It creates a free path for access. Some mobile apps available on Apple is Scene AI, which we will be presenting to you soon. KNFB Reader, which allows you to snap a picture of any kind of document and have it read back to you in real time. Remember the camera earlier? Might take 5 or 10 minutes to get some OCR or optical character recognition, that's another way of saying text to speech. This, at best 10 seconds. Speechify, another free app that again, that all students use, that is completely accessible. Again, rooted from Universal Design. Android has what's called Lookout. Lookout, again, lends to Scene AI that allows you to snap pictures and do other things. And also the KNFB Reader, like I said, cross-platform. You can have it on either device. There's no need to choose. And lots of students in my blind community already have these apps in their phone and tablets ready to go. Right now, let's talk about Scene AI. Scene AI for me, as a person who just so happens to be blind, has been a blessing. It allows me to use the camera to scan money and have it read back to me. Regular bills, 5s, 10s, so on. It allows me to use the camera as a barcode reader, scan a barcode and have a food item read back to me. And it also allows me to recognize a person, should that person want to lend their picture to me, so that when I point the picture in their direction, it will say maybe Patrick or Karen. So we'll get into that in a moment, and we will take that question at the end, but that is a good question. How do I know where the barcode is? Right now, though, we're going to prepare to wow you with a couple of things that I enjoy about Scene AI. One of them, which would be beneficial in class, is the document scanning feature and the handwriting feature. Scene AI can pick up handwriting, like on a whiteboard, but here I am spoiling it for you guys. Let's send it over back to Mr. Tackett.
All right, thank you. And in just a moment, I'll share my screen. ready. Again, having just a little bit of technical difficulties. Give me just a moment.
So if I may then at the moment, if I can answer that first question on how, oh, are we ready?
No, it's still having just a little bit of trouble here getting it to.
Okay, well, if I can answer the question, then how I would recognize a barcode is that the Scene AI app would, it would give me audible feedback. So the closer that the camera came into the range of the barcode that I would be holding here in this hand, I wish I had a live demo, but we'll do with what we got. The closer I get into the field of that barcode, the quicker the beeps become. Then once the camera finds the barcode, it automatically takes a snapshot of it, and then it applies, and then it shows up on my phone and gives me feedback through the voiceover screen reader.
All right, so now we have an example. We should be able to. So we'll look at the
document.
document.
Hold steady. Processing.
So you could see, and normally the person using it would be using headphones, because as soon as you start using the application, it starts scanning the environment to give audio narration. So the person would use headphones or an ear pod so that only they would be hearing it. But then you've got the information and it can be read to you.
Body, font family, Arial, font size, 12 points. We can do it. The importance of context. The essential description is determined by what the author is discussing in the text, as seen in the exemplars below. 1. Brief description.
So, and again, as Nora just explained,
hold steady, short text.
Different channels that the environmental scanner can use. So again, we could read text this way. I think he mentioned also the currency scanner. So
20 US dollars.
Recognizes all sorts of different currencies. You can input what type of currency you're looking for. And then we'll take a look at the handwriting recognition. So this could be something that's an example of something that would be written on the whiteboard in class during lecture.
Handwriting, preview. Processing. 10821 homework for Thursday. Read pages 415 to 437. Be ready to explain the term below cultural icon with excess ideological baggage.
And I think if it can read my handwriting, we know that it's pretty advanced technology. So, and again, it does have the other types of environmental narration that it can do, facial recognition, light, color. So, and again, one of the most amazing things I think about this type of technology is, one, that it's free, but that the problem is there's so much available now, deciding which type to use. So, Joe, I'll go back to you.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm listening to the feedback from the audience in the chat box, and I would really, I really appreciate the positive commentary on this app. And again, but we have more. So Access Tools for Reading is up next. And what's really cool about this portion of the apps is that it lends itself to the blind community. We essentially use the same type of things to get reading audibly announced to us. But there are other different visual tools that come into view. Bookshare.org is a organization that allows for instructors to sign up and have their textbook put into EPUB text and Word documents. They have some built-in tools that you can use also to get audible feedback and some highlighting feedback as well. Great for someone who may have some trouble reading print. Again, here we have the KNFB Reader. Where did I see that before? Or at least hear it before, right? Lending itself, again, to those who have trouble reading print, but have vision. Read and Write Gold is a larger program, a more concise program, and it is a desktop application that does a lot of what we are going to look at next. Kurzweil was developed in the 1970s by somebody named Ray Kurzweil. Well, I guess that's why it's called Kurzweil. But in the spirit of it all, the story is that he was sitting on his plane next to a passenger who just so happened to be blind. And Mr. Kurzweil asked him, "What are one of your biggest challenges?" Which the blind traveler responded, "If there was something that could be used to read text, it would blow my mind away." Well, this blind traveler didn't know that he was sitting next to the person who developed the first usable scanner. And so Mr. Kurzweil took this information and created Kurzweil 3000, which is the creme of the crop, a good tool for not just persons who have vision problems, but for those who have trouble reading print. Another story about Kurzweil quickly is that as his program progressed forward, he tapped the shoulder of another person that we might all know. Yes, I just called to say I love you. Mr. Stevie Wonder himself was asked to task or create the opportunity for Kurzweil to read music notes aloud to him and also have it transcribed in Braille. So now he could play his instruments and follow these musical notes as he played along. But again, enough about that. Let's dig into some of the nuts and bolts of Kurzweil and things that we want to learn about, because this is a comprehensive reading program that utilizes text-to-speech. For this again, I will send this over to Mr. Tackett.
All right. Let's see. So, all right. So you should be seeing my browser. It's a Chrome browser window, and this is the Kurzweil 3000 web app. And this is an application that's provided to students in DSPS, again, as a text-to-speech program. But it is really sort of a comprehensive reading and text access application. And again, as we go through and look at some of these things, kind of be trying to think about different ways you can think that you might be able to utilize this, or students might be able to utilize it. Fundamentally, it is a text-to-speech program, so we can just select.
What single quote is the point? You've probably heard these words before. It's a question people ask when they want to know the main idea that someone is trying to express. The same question can guide you as you read.
So as you can hear, it takes the print text and then reads it aloud, but it also highlights what is being read. So you get the sentence or paragraph is highlighted, and then the individual word. So it also is really beneficial for people who may have some difficulty with text, whether it be, some difficulty with contrast on the page, You can change the color of the text, you can change the color of the highlighting. Also, people who may have difficulty with focus. And so what we find a lot of times is having that auditory input, but also being able to combine it with the visual and tracking it can help a lot of people with being able to focus, and then ultimately can increase comprehension and retention. But the nice thing about Kurzweil and programs like it, typically they do a lot more. So beyond just reading the content, you can interact with the content, particularly, English instructors like to talk about the idea of being an active reader. So this allows you to do that sort of active interaction with the text. So you can go in and highlight just as you would on a kind of a printed textbook and pick different colors of highlighting. And so what that allows you to do as well is that, say, if you've gone through your chapter and you've highlighted a key term and then the definition, you can extract any of the work, any of the annotation you've done to a study guide, to outlines, to flashcards. So again, just another way to interact and engage actively with the text. You can add notes, kind of margin notes, sticky notes. It has the ability to look at different parts of the text and then pull it and drag it into separating the main ideas, supporting ideas, additional information. It also gives you the ability to take text and do a translation. So if you select certain parts of the text, you can go here, you can get dictionary definitions, you can get a picture dictionary, so you have the visual representation synonyms, but the translation, I think, will be interesting to a lot of people. So we've got the text that we selected, and then we can pick the target language and then hit translate and then have it read aloud to us.
¿Cuál es el punto de? Probablemente hayas escuchado estas palabras antes. Es una pregunta que la gente hace cuando quiere conocer la idea principal que alguien está tratando de expresar.
So I think that's one of the ways in which we really move towards universal design, because I think that we can think of lots of ways that this kind of an application can be leveraged by so many people to improve learning, to improve retention, just develop learning strategies. It incorporates speech to text, so you can dictate as well. And just there are all sorts of other features, but at least now you have an idea of some of the software as far as the text to speech and alternate media applications some students may be using as an accommodation. So that's Kurzweil, and then send it back to Janelle.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for all the wonderful comments that we've been getting back in the chat. I greatly appreciate it. So next we have tools for non-hearing access. In my short time here at Fresno City College, I always wondered what it was like for a person who is blind to speak or have a dialogue with someone who just might so happen to be deaf. And I haven't found the answer to that until, well, just recently, maybe within a year, the past year or so, through these different apps on how to communicate with each other, but also a way to get a transcription down during the lecture for someone who is non-hearing. So all of these tools that we're going to go over next really hold a place near and dear to my heart, in the idea that I could speak to everyone, no matter who. Live Transcribe is an app that transcribes text to speech, where someone can, a non-hearing person can text and then push a button and have that text read aloud, and where the hearing person could then speak aloud their response, and the non-hearing person would get instant transcription of that text on their screen. And I went out of order, so my apologies. Live caption is the idea that a non-hearing person can use this app in a setting where there is a video going on. And then there may not be translators available at this time, which is okay. We all go through different access at different times. This would allow the speech coming from any audible device to be instantly captioned, and then within tools be edited and used for other, well, for later on. What I really want to look at with all of you and Mr. Tackett is this great app called Otter. Otter, in its description to me, was really great because it allowed for punctuation and a plethora of other things and uses. So I really want to dive into Otter and pass it over to Mr. Tackett to give you a better idea of how it works. Otter AI, pardon me.
All right, so now what we're looking at again is my iPad, and we're looking at the Otter AI app. Many of you may be familiar with this. It's certainly gotten a lot more attention kind of in recent months. If you have, then you probably know how remarkable it is. But for those of you who haven't seen it, I wanted to give a demonstration and kind of look at it. We'll do sort of a role play, I think. Karen, if you want to act as an instructor, giving a lecture, and I'll be the student with my iPad with Otter AI in class, and see if we can demonstrate how it works doing that.
I don't know, Patrick. I don't know if I can act like an instructor. All right, so class, we've been working on argumentation and starting to brainstorm about topics for an argument. And what you see on the screen is an outline for an argument from a student from last semester. So notice they've got the claim at the top: all shrink wrap plastic should be banned in the United States. And notice that there are Roman numerals for the two major sections, supporting points and opposing points. And letters represent the points themselves. A supporting point for getting rid of shrink, it's used abundantly. Another point is that it's not necessary. Okay. All right, Patrick, is that enough?
Yeah, I think that gives us an idea of what it does. So you can see, and also what I did while we were having our lecture was that I took a photo of a screen, but you could use that to take a picture of notes. You can take a picture of what's on the whiteboard, and then that puts that image in line with the transcribed text. And so you have access to the recording, the transcribed text, and the visual image, as well as being able to highlight and interact with that transcribed text in other ways. So that's Otter AI.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tackett. Appreciate that. Moving on is our audio note-taking tools. Some of these tools enhance focus and memory. You know, as a student, I can definitely say that with all these distractions around me, as far as, you know, my phone, or sometimes just being able to concentrate in the class for whatever reason, anything that helps with my memory and retention and focus in class is always helpful. And SonoSense and Gleam, by the description that Mr. Tackett gave me, is a great tool. It's an accommodation, again, given by the DSPNS office. And it is, again, another tool that is, in my opinion, in my own opinion, the cream of the crop as far as providing a great note-taking alternative for any student who needs this. And here to explain it more again, one last time, is Mr. Patrick Tackett again.
So, all right. So this is the Sonosent desktop app, and it is termed an audio note-taking program. And I want to be mindful of time. These programs have so many features, but I wanted to at least give everyone a sense of what they did at their their foundation. So then if you had questions or had interest, that we'll be able to stay after and show you other things and answer questions and other features, hopefully. But Sonosent kind of tries to tackle that problem of note-taking. And, if we stop and think what we want students to do when they're taking notes and what we're asking them to do when they're taking notes, is really a very complex set of tasks, right, that have to happen simultaneously. So there's information coming in, auditory information, visual information, tactile information if we're in a lab. Then as that information goes into our brain, then we have to, at that same time, process it. We have to try and connect it to other things that we know, to comprehend, to begin to store it, to make decisions about it, to decide what's important, what we need to focus on, if we're not sure about something, ask questions about it. And then also we have to, at the same time, be doing sort of output. We have to be writing our notes. And again, deciding, okay, what do I need to get down in my notes, but I still have to be attending to the lecture itself. Do I just try to get everything? Do I try to get just a little bit? So there's this dilemma for a lot of people, I know for me, note-taking. And then if there are other things that interfere with any of those discrete tasks, the whole thing can kind of fall apart, or we get fractured information. And so when we go back to try to look at our notes, we don't have everything that we need. So Sonosent attempts to address that and break up the act of note-taking into, things that aren't constrained by time in a single moment, so that then we're able to engage the material more effectively. So it's a recording program. So I'm going to start just by recording. And you should see we've got different panes here. This is image pane, a text pane, and an audio pane. The audio is being recorded and is represented by these chunks. So these little visual bars. If I stop talking for a moment, you'll see we get longer chunks or sustained chunks of audio. And just to show you, I can stop the recording, click anywhere in this kind of timeline in an audio pane. The audio is being recorded. And so we've captured the audio. So again, our scenario is that we're in class listening to a lecture. I'm going to start recording again. And the idea is that in order for students or anyone to be able to engage what's happening in the moment more effectively, they're going to capture that information and be able to attend to it in a deeper way if they don't have to do all of those things all at once: sorting, comprehending, making decisions, questioning, and then also either writing or typing. But at the same time, we don't want it to be a passive experience or a lower engagement, because we know that this is where the learning really begins. So if we are making decisions about the information, then that's keeping us engaged. So what we can do is begin to annotate, and by doing color coding of the audio information. And that also will make it easier to go back when we go back to engage it after the class. So you can see I have colors here. Red is labeled important. If I click that, it starts to label the audio chunks. So that might be if the instructor says, this is going to be on the test, or if I decide this is something that I know is going to be really important, I want to color code that and make sure I go back and check that. If there's something that I know, let's say, or an example, say in a math class, this is when you're giving the steps on how to solve that particular type of problem. Student might want to denote those with a certain color so that they can go back and check it. If I hit return, you see we get a new section break. So these section breaks are meant to be used when we go on to a new subject, or say a new PowerPoint slide, something like that. So every time we go on to a new subject, or the instructor moves to a new slide, I might just hit return. And so I already start to get that separation. The text section can be used to take notes. So if the student wants to, they can, and if they're fast typist, they can go ahead and type notes as they're going along. What I recommend to a lot of students, particularly students who don't type quickly and really need to attend to the lecture while they're in it, just say, we'll maybe just use this text box to kind of, start an outline, to give headings. So again, if we're in our math class, maybe this is where we're just talking about division or something, using my limited knowledge of math. And then we're going on to, okay, what are we talking about? Multiplication. And it just allows us to start to kind of already separate the information by topic or particular area that we're discussing. So then when we go back and things have been color coded, it's easier to find what we want in the material, in the recording. There's so much more that it can do. If you provide your students with a PowerPoint, this does something that's really great. You can import PowerPoint slides. So I'm going to import slides for this lecture. Usually I would do this before the lecture started. If I would set this up before I go into the lecture, and I'll show you why. Because it takes the PowerPoint slides and it inserts them into the image pane, and then automatically sets a different section for each slide. So if I start at the beginning and every time the instructor advances the slide, I hit return, it's going to move on to the next slide. Oops, I'm in the right slide there. And afterward, you have the lecture, and it's in sync with the PowerPoint slide. And then also, if you're taking notes here, it's going to sync anything that is typed in the text box with the PowerPoint slide and the audio. So then you can click on any of these and it will take you directly to the point in the audio recording that syncs with that particular time you were typing the text. It has the ability, it has all sorts of filters. So if you have someone who maybe has difficulty hearing at certain tones or levels or tempo, you can adjust all of those things. But the idea is that the student is able to capture all this information and then go back and process it at their own speed and to revisit it and make sure that they have everything. And then take the time to synthesize the information in their own words in the text area. And that's where the real learning happens, right? That they can be sure that they have everything, but they're also able to really do that synthesis at their own speed and putting it into their own words, connecting it to other things that they know. That's really making the learning a much kind of more effective. It also, I've had students use this to great effect in tutoring sessions as well. A lot of times students will say, you know, I feel like I understood it when I was sitting there with the tutor, but I got home and I just really couldn't understand my notes. The nice thing about Sonocent, and it has a companion app, I don't really have time to show it right now, but it allows you to take a picture. And so it will also insert the image that you take in another pane. So then you have the PowerPoint slide, the notes, the audio, and the image, and they're all in sync, and you're able to go back. So what students do, particularly say like in math, I have them record, take a picture of each step of the problem as they work with the tutor and have the tutor explain it. So that way, when they're at home, they can play back that step-by-step explanation, and they have the auditory information, they have the visual information, they have whatever material that the instructor supplied, and they're able to work on their homework with that sort of everything that they worked on with the tutor, or if they worked with the instructor in office hours. And then also you can export all this to a study guide. You can export it to a video, and it will puts the slides, it puts the transcription, the notes, and the audio. Oh, one other thing I wanted to show, it has the ability also to extract all of the text from any image PowerPoint slide that you have in the image pane. Let me show you that. So it took all of the text from all the slides. And then again, because it is moving towards a truly universal design app, you can have it speak.
Tunnels through time. How to travel back in time. Find a shortcut. 4 steps to wormhole.
So anything that you put in there, if it's a PDF, you can extract text from that. And it also does do some transcription. It integrates with some transcription software. And I know Sonocent is working to have built-in transcription so that it will be the full package. And this, again, is something that's available to students through DSPS as an accommodation. I think we're running short on time. So I did want to talk about Glean, but basically Glean has the same functionality as Sonocent, but it just doesn't have the full feature set, and the interface is much simpler. It actually looks more like a social media app. There's less distracting sort of, things that you can do, and if some students are better able to focus on just, that basically recording and tagging. And again, so there's a web version and a mobile version of those as well. And you can take the images and connect all of that. So I think we're running a little short on time. So I'll wrap up the explanation of Sonocent and Glean there, and can take other questions later.
Well, thank you, Mr. Tackett. That was awesome and very, very concise presentation of Gleam and Sonocent. And so just to review quickly, we've talked about different dialogues between myself and teachers. In a classroom setting, that was the question of how can we continue to keep access going, start a foundation for universal design, and also showcase what we're talking about in these presentations. But well, what about the teacher-student partnership and what I tend to call it? See, a lot of this wasn't brought to Mrs. Crockett and the next presenter coming up until there was a question that was asked. The question was, what do you need? What do you need right now in this moment that could help you in real time? And this was when we had face-to-face instruction. And so this instructor asked the question, and I'd like her to tell a little bit about herself and how this partnership in also in cahoots with advocacy helped us move along in a class setting. So I'd like to introduce you from the DSPN office also, Mrs. Jessica Fisher.
Thank you, Genaro. Hi, everybody. Just a little bit about myself. I know we're running out of time, so I appreciate your patience and sticking around with us. I kind of started my journey and becoming a people with disabilities advocate back in high school. I was a junior LARC and a Special Olympic coach. And that really has led me to where I am today and the passion that I have for people with disabilities. I have a bachelor's in communicative disorders, deaf education from Fresno State, and I have a master's in rehabilitation counseling, along with my CRC, which is a certified rehabilitation counselor. And I'm also an associate professional clinical counselor as well. Here at Fresno City, I teach 4 English classes within the DSPS office. 2 of them are reading classes and 2 of them are writing classes. So just a little bit about the role as an instructor. As it's been mentioned by Genaro, our goal as an instructor is to increase our access for all students, not just students with disabilities, and to be aware of the many resources and tools that we have available to us now and that you could potentially use in the future. So as our job as instructors, we are hoping to find solutions and build our toolkit. Simply, we just need to think about the different resources and tools that we have currently that we use, and what we can potentially use in the future. So being an instructor in the classroom, sometimes we don't want to add to our plate, but in the moment, as a teacher, you know that's not always going to happen. And the classroom doesn't always go as planned. So you need to think on the fly. And so thank goodness for Genaro, because we had moments where, you go in and you have your lesson plan and it doesn't go according to plan. And you were like, okay, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to have a student sit by him? Am I going to just be there and read for him? And thank God, just by me asking Genaro, how can I help you, has led me to the many tools that I now can use for all my students that were presented today. So it just started this, like Genaro had mentioned, the student-teacher partnership started by me asking, how can I help you in the moment in real time? And he taught me about seeing AI. And that was when he showed me about the app and we took a picture of the notes. I'm old school, I kind of pass out a lot of documents. So we quickly took a picture of the document that I passed out and it was able to read it back to him quietly with his headphones on. Other times I write a lot of notes on the board and quickly we would take a picture of the board and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think it's gonna read everything because it's like dry erase. It read everything back to him perfectly. And I even sat there and made sure nothing was cut out for him. So that is seeing AI. It can be hands-on, used in the classroom. It takes no more than 10 seconds. A student even willing to help can participate, and it doesn't add or take away from any lecture time. It can also be done before and even after class. Another thing that was mentioned was the KNFB Reader. That is another app that can be used. How we used that was simply if you have your notes saved ahead of time, you can save notes to a flash drive. So Genaro would give me his flash drive and I would save the notes to it. So before class started, I would do that, or after class to prepare for the next day. So then he was ready and just plugged in during class his flash drive and was able to follow along and have the notes and everything right there for him and read back to him. So that's kind of what I've done in my class. I'm kind of the one that's kind of like, thank goodness for Hanaro, because he's taught me in the moment how we can be accessible for all. So this, just in a nutshell, can begin the positive chain for building access for all students in every classroom, and start even the role for them being able to advocate for themselves. Like, how can I help you? And then being able to explain what they need, and us being able to share this potentially resource may be able to be useful for you as well. So back to you, Hannah.
Thank you. So why accessibility with me? Because if we all look at ourselves, as myself as a teacher and an instructor, and all that help teach, or our counselors, if we say this mantra that accessibility starts with me, then it brings this whole presentation to the forefront. It's right in front of us, and we ask these questions, and we pull out this toolbox that we have, and we begin to present them to not just students who have an alternative need, but the ability to let students who can benefit from this use this as well. Then stigma begins to become minimalized, and everybody's able to learn their education through the same lens. I'd like to thank everybody here in attendance for being with us. I'd like the mantra of accessibility starts with me to keep going. FCC is near and dear with me to heart. We are the first in the state. We were a school built on the concept of teachers teaching future teachers how to teach. And I think that is exceptional. And I think there is a good distinction on why the bullet train in California is going to be here in Fresno first, because we do teach the best, and we do have the best, and we are sought after, not only in California, but everywhere else. So thank you, everyone. And if you have any questions, we will start from then. Thank you.
Hi, just a quick announcement that I wanted to make really fast. I know that we had everyone sign in with their names in the beginning in the chat. However, the only way that attendance will be reported is if you logged in with your FCC email. So just to let everyone know, and because we're using the Zoom report for attendance, just to let everyone know. I did save the chat for anyone that did log in with their name and aren't using their FCC email. So then I can have that and send that to Susie if anybody has any issues. Thank you.
So Rachel asked how to log in. I believe at the top of your screen, you can make a change and put your email address in. Okay. All right, so questions that we had. Let's take a look at the chat. All right, Marvita, thank you for your link and PowerPoint.
You're welcome.
Yeah. One of the questions was how much was a camera that you showed, Hanaro?
Mm-hmm. How much was the camera?
One of the questions, yeah.
Yeah, it was between $300 and $400 for the Pro camera.
Okay. And Marvita says you really needed this information last year. I apologize, but you have it now, and hopefully our goal is that these resources will be somehow condensed so that they'll all be accessible for all students, not just, for students who are going through DSPNS, but for my student. And I didn't mention this at the beginning, this resource list has helped so many people in my life already. I was at Costco getting my mother-in-law some hearing aids. And because I had access to this list from Hinaro, I could show my mother-in-law how to control the sound on her phone for her hearing aids. The man who was standing behind us in line was listening to our conversation. He had an Android, and he asked me, is there something for an Android that does that? I said, yes. Here, I'll send you this list. Yesterday, I had a conversation with a family member who has macular degeneration. And she used to love to read, but can no longer do that. And so with Seeing AI, she'll be able to hear. She'll be able to hear books. She'll be able to see the currency of the money that she's giving at the grocery store. She'll be able to scan a scene and see what's around her. Some of these tools are amazing.
We have a raised hand. Rhonda raised her hand.
Rhonda?
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I was getting ready to type my question in the chat. Okay, I have two. One is the Kurzweil. Is that only accessible to students when they come into the office, or do they have a device that they can use and carry around with them, or is it only doing DSPS office hours basically, or when you're open?
So, I guess I can go ahead and take that one, if that's all right. So
That's one question. I have another.
Okay, want me to answer that one first, or?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Yes, please.
You're muted.
I was muted. I'm sorry. So Kurzweil it's a web login. So actually it's available everywhere and anywhere at any time for students. They they have we set up a user account, and then our alternate media specialist, Michael, works with them to upload the texts for their courses, any of those materials, and they're able to access it from anywhere. So that's one of the really nice things about Kurzweil. It does have a mobile app, but even on mobile devices, we usually find people prefer to use the web app. But yeah, to answer that question, no, they can access it anytime, anywhere.
Okay, thank you so much. That's good to know. And for, I didn't want to mispronounce his name.
Gennaro?
Yes, Gennaro, thank you so much. And I appreciate all of the presenters today. It was great. What is your preferred method for interacting with film, like in class?
In interacting with
a film or a video?
Well, that can get a little tricky. Films, in the resource list, I guess that would be good to add on to it. There is a way to submit a film into different nonprofit organizations or just organizations that service educational establishments, and what they then create a track for the film that is called audio description. And so let's say we're looking at a film, a nature film. The audio description, sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback from everyone leaving. It announces to me. Let's say there's someone walking along a trail and there is nobody talking. It will say to me, a young man walking down the trail with green trees to the side of him. So it would have to be something that would probably have to go through certain channels in order for it to have the audio description track added to it. If you wanted to maybe sample it yourself, Netflix uses that technology in their mobile app. And it's really neat. It doesn't take away from any of the speech in the movie. it more brings to the forefront the action or the movement or any contrast to the movie that people are able to see instead of what they're hearing. But the short answer is it would have to have audio description.
Okay, thank you so much. And
You're welcome.
appreciate all of the presentation and all the presenters today. Thank you so much. It was great.
You're welcome. Thank you, Rhonda.
Okay. Other questions? I'm trying to scan the list for questions, but if you want to just unmute and ask us directly, that might help too.
Aaron, I think the next one might be Kathy Rice. Had a question. Do these programs create a file that can be reviewed later?
Yes, all of the programs that we looked at they create a file that you can use later and access in various ways. In fact, they create multiple files. So for instance, like Otter, you can export the transcription to editable text in like a word processing document. You can export the transcription to an SRT file, which if you don't know that's a subtitle file. So if you have a video and then you are recording and transcribing it, you're able to upload that transcription as a timestamped subtitle file. The things like Sonocet and Glean, yeah, you're able to export again to Word documents. Actually, you can export them to study guides in Word programs or word processing programs. Like I said, you can export them to video files so that they have the auditory and the visual, it's like a YouTube video for students to study, and it actually overlays the notes that they've typed. So all of them, not only do they create a file, but the really great thing is they allow you to export them in multiple file formats and engage them in multiple ways. Looks like we have a hand raised. Kuvu.
Yeah, so first, all this information was awesome. I think as a person who's really hands-on and really liking to understand, the ins and outs of things, this is really helpful. And having it from, the perspective of the student, from the faculty members, I thought this was an awesome presentation. So that's all the accolades and stuff. But my next question is really about how these things can be integrated with Canvas, especially with the, going online. What I've done is I have videos, but I have also integrated modules by having a lot of things typed into it. Do these things integrate well with Canvas?
So I guess the answer to that is it depends. When you're saying, do they live in Canvas? Some programs they actually completely integrate, they kind of plug into Canvas, and then some things you're able to export information. I think most of the things that we demonstrated today would be something that could interact with Canvas, or a student could interact with the material in Canvas, but they might not at this point, I'm trying to think, directly integrate. I know there are some that are kind of in the works of looking at trying to do something like that, but I don't think there's any direct plug-in type of integration with these apps. There are some that do. Can you give me a specific, maybe kind of an example of what you're thinking about when you're looking at what type of integration?
Sure. So I guess my question is really just because I provide written material kind of, of my lecture, for instance, instead of saying it, maybe I'll have all the material written down. But now one of my worries has always been, somebody who needs audio accessibility to it, can they be able to utilize that? Is it something that I need to provide for them? Do I export it out so they have the file, or can the tools that they have just read it straight from Canvas, I guess?
Well, so again, I guess that depends on how the file that you have in Canvas is saved and what format it's in. Again,
So for instance, it's in a module, right? So it's right on Canvas. It's not actually like a file, like a Microsoft Word file. They'd have to, log on to Canvas to be able to, read the material.
Yeah, one of the nice things about Canvas and the way that it's set up is that really even like the operating systems of a lot of computers are going to be able to read that information, say read it out loud, or that's in that case Kurzweil has a web plugin. It's called Read the Web, and that has the ability to read content that is in a web browser, most textual content that's in a web browser. So there are definitely ways that students could access that. Just if it's just text, say it's on a page in a module, and they'd be able to work with that as text to speech.
So can I answer part of that too?
I was gonna say, Karen, the same thing. Go ahead.
I'm going to share my screen.
Okay, let me stop my share.
Okay. And if you go into Canvas and you go into one of your classes and down to settings, across the top, you'll see apps. And if you click on that, I don't see seeing AI in there, but as teachers, part of the reason why we put on this presentation is the more encouragement we get from teachers and students who want these things. In fact, we can ask for them and have them loaded to apps. We can ask for a what Patrick called a site license for some of these, so that way they would be accessible to all. I'm not sure how each one would interact with Canvas, but we're working towards universal design so that all of these things could be accessible to all students, not just students who were blind or deaf, but last semester, a student who had dyslexia in my class had instant access to my ebook. And so hopefully, even if we don't have it now, if we push, we can get it. Sorry, Jessica, go ahead.
No, you're good. I think another way is like right now, some of the apps and tools are not directly in Canvas. Some are through DSPS and through accommodations, but also as an instructor, it's kind of like now it's like, okay, now I know of these resources and tools like in the moment that can help students. So maybe a way would be like even on your syllabus or on your homepage on Canvas, or including like, hey, if you need additional help, or here are these options, or if you prefer reading aloud versus reading silently, here is an option. So it's kind of like almost providing the student with a resource list that they could potentially use, like to study, to take notes, to help them, since a lot of the online falls on them.
Yeah. So if I can just
yes, go ahead.
give my perspective on what I use for Canvas at the moment. I use a regular screen reader, which I talked about earlier, which is a software that reads the screen aloud to me in different elements and where I'm at. And so there have been times in Mrs. Crockett class and Mrs. Fisher's class where things are not in a DOX extension. But with the screen reader and its usability for me as someone who needs audible feedback, I was able to access Canvas, get into that portion of Canvas, and with my arrow keys or certain keyboard commands, have that read back to me. The addition to that would then have a option for a Docs extension link on Canvas where students can click on and upload the file to their screen. So that way they can use their screen reader if they happen to be blind or vision impaired, or even have a way to access some type of software, have it read back to them. Microsoft Word has built-in technology in it, which is a read aloud button, which then allows the context of the text to be read aloud to the student. So there are a lot of tools now, which I said are here now and that are in front of us, and that can continue to be pushed forward. So as far as from a blind student's perspective, Audible is accessible through Canvas, and with the addition of a document file is even more accessible through Microsoft Word.
Well,
There's a couple other questions. Another one from Aaron. Is there a hands-on training for making documents accessible?
we have no plans for a hands-on training, but that's a great idea. We're thinking about other presentations to do. I know that through the library, they used to have small workshops. We're thinking about maybe doing some of those for students. So it's, you know, if you request it, we would definitely consider it. Are there any other questions? Yes, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time reading the
I'm not
chat.
looking. I think I got everyone, but I'm not 100% sure because there's a lot of emails going through. So if anybody has a question, if you want to just unmute yourself or raise your hand, we can answer them.
Or do I have to unmute everyone? Oh, I hear somebody. Nope.
Oh, there was a question from Elise. I think, can it be read slower? Some of the stuff seemed a little bit fast when the reader was reading.
That I think was the Seeing AI, and I don't know why it suddenly sped up like that, because it didn't do it while we were practicing. It never did it before. But of course, anything that's going to go wrong during a presentation will. Murphy's Law, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, to piggyback on that, in the Seeing AI settings, because we were so limited in what, you know, on time, in the settings of Seeing AI, you can actually choose a different voice and choose what is read aloud as far as punctuation and other attributes of the speech, and also increase or decrease the speed to a super slow or extremely fast. So within the settings of Seeing AI and Kurzweil, and probably some of the other apps that used text to speech or audio output, there are always, usually, I don't want to say always, but there are usually settings that let you accommodate your speed.
Yeah, you can adjust the speed really profoundly,
Yes.
from very slow to very fast. And that what a lot of times people find is as they become more accustomed to using it, that they continue upping the speed and they kind of become more and more efficient. And some people are listening to these things so fast at times that it's if you're not accustomed to it, it's hard to follow. But yeah, it's again, you're able to personalize it. And also, like you said, there are all sorts of voice options and things like that. Oh, I think there was a question about, and I can't remember if you answered it, about the barcode and how do you tell where the barcode is? And that's pretty interesting.
I think we answered that one.
Yeah, when you were setting up CNAI, I wish at that moment I would have had or we would have had a product available, but in the spirit of keeping it educational, I did the best I could with my my rendition of simulating a product and what the camera does. If you have anything around with the barcode, Mr. Tackett, you can show that. But if not, we can.
See if I have something.
And again, hopefully, with this app, it will work. It does better with food products.
Yeah.
Can of soda.
Bottle of water.
Bottle of water. Yeah.
That was everybody in the chat. I think I hope.
Thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome.
All right.
So
I think I'm going to have to head out soon because I want to go to another presentation.
Right, try this. See if we have a successful experiment here.
Short text. Product. Process. Reserita organic refried beans. Traditional.
Now that's in my realm of good eats.
You're making me hungry.
Rosarita refried beans. And I think if you look at the screen, there might be a more information button that might dig into the nutrition.
Reserita organic refried beans. Traditional.
And yeah.
Traditional.
Yeah, so I hit the more information button, and then we get this text, which also
Rosarita organic refried beans. Traditional condition. New ships quickly and securely in original packaging. Tracking included. Product features 16 ounces. Rosarita organic refried beans, original recipe refried beans, but with 100% USDA certified organic.
So yeah, there's that example. And then also does things like can
Color, preview, gray and brownish green. Gray. Brown. Gray. Gray and white. White.
just as far as the environment
Gray.
things.
Yeah, it also depends on the light and the environment.
So again, it's just it's really a pretty remarkable environmental, truly an environmental narration program, and you're able to, like I said, recognize faces, and it even can approximate age.
Uh-oh, we don't want to go there.
Well, I'm not sure if you read up on the new, for that app, the new things that it does, but it has implemented LiDAR, which is great. We'll talk about that later, Mr. Tackett. It's really neat.
Really, I think one of the things is the opportunities and the challenges are kind of the same, that there are just so many new pieces of technology out there that do so many of these things. Sometimes it's hard to decide and to find which one is most effective, but right. It's a nice problem to have, as opposed to having, what used to be the case where there are very limited options.
Yes.
And they were very expensive.
Oh yeah.
Now all on in one place would be the ideal. All right. If there are no more questions, I think we're going to conclude. Thank you for coming. And please pass the word, ask for these resources. The more we ask, the more we can get them, and the more our students benefit, or we benefit, because the wealth of information that I got this semester from Hinaro is priceless. It's helped me and many, many, many other people already.
And
So
I've seen instructors using these technologies in really interesting ways as well. I've seen instructors use, say, Sonocent to capture their class, and then they send out to the entire class the file with the PowerPoint, the audio, and everything, and so they kind of push that out to the entire class.
and we have a site license for Sonocent, you said?
DSPS has a multiple seat license right now, so
Multiple seat license.
we have quite a large seat license. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right.
All right. Well, would the presenters like to meet up later and maybe have a rally?
Maybe we can just stay behind real quick.
Thank
Thank
you.
you everybody for